The Senate yesterday unanimously passed the Basic Bill of Rights for survivors of sexual assault. The bill attempts to standardize the way in which the criminal justice and medical systems deal with sexual assault, which oftentimes puts undue stress and responsibility on the survivor. The bill must still pass in the House of Representatives before making its way to the president. So this was passed yesterday. It was authored by Jeanne Shaheen, who's a Democratic senator from New Hampshire, as well as Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut and Patrick Leahy of Vermont. And a lot of the discussion, a part of this bill was also contributed to by Amanda Wynn, who was a sexual assault survivor at the age of 22, and since then has really gone to bat for sexual assault survivors. And she founded RISE, which is a civil rights nonprofit organization. So the bill is meant to standardize the way survivors are treated by both the criminal justice and the medical system, because right now the steps are quite arduous. There's no federal standardization of these kinds of issues. For example, even just in the instance of rape kits, there have to be in-person follow-ups to make sure that those rape kits aren't destroyed. Many times, even though the statute of limitations, even in Ms. Wynn's case, it was a 15-year statute of limitations, the rape kits are destroyed within 6 months. So she's had to go back every 6 months to be like, hey, I'm still not done. So there's a lot of those steps. There's, of course, the fact that many of those rape kits go untested, and survivors don't know whether or not they've been tested. They don't know where they are in the process. They have to pay for the rape kits themselves, et cetera. So, yeah, I mean, and also the fact that many states vary, regarding how they deal with sexual assault. So this was a way to kind of codify that and at least standardize it in some way. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's long overdue, and it's just staggering that this isn't the case. And it's also staggering that there's that 6 month period, which, as you said, the statute of limitations is 15 years, but the rape kits are kept for 6 months.
Yeah.
Makes no sense at all.
To me, that tells you how many of them there are, to the point that they have to go through them all the time. But the fact that they remain untested, I think, is a huge issue. So, so some of the things that the legislation poses, this new Bill of Rights, as I say, is that rape kits have to be preserved for the entire statute of limitations. The victims have to be given notification at least 60 days prior to a rape kit being destroyed, so that they can request, keeping that or preserving that rape kit. They are supposed to be given access to counseling. And then also part of this is there's supposed to be groups established by both the Attorney General as well as the Secretary of Health and Human Services, and for them to kind of come up with guidelines for how different cases and survivors should be handled, so then that way the medical community and the law enforcement community can be advised as to how to handle it. Because I think that's what's happening right now, is it seems like there's a lot of bureaucratic roadblocks to survivors having to deal with this, and this is already after an insanely traumatic experience.
Sure.
So right now, the legislation that was passed yesterday, it still does have to go through the House of Representatives before it goes to the president's desk. But right now, Amanda Wynn actually started a petition on change.org. It already has 100,000 plus signatures to get this to pass. But coming from Jeanne Shaheen, who was one of the senators who authored this legislation, she has this to say. She says, "The system failed Amanda and so many other survivors of sexual assault across the country. Today, the Senate has sent a message that it's time to change the culture around how survivors are treated in our criminal justice system. I'm hopeful that the House will soon follow suit and we can send this important legislation to the president's desk." And then Richard Blumenthal, who was another of the authors, follows that up by saying, "Far too often, the criminal justice process further compounds the searing trauma survivors have already experienced. Passage of this important bill is a meaningful step forward in the pursuit of justice for sexual assault survivors." So to me, I guess, I'm very happy that this took place, but sort of to your point earlier, I'm still somehow surprised that there's not some kind of standardization within the federal government.
I think it speaks to my hunch is that it speaks to the way in which culturally rape has always been treated, and the religious right. And the stigma that was always been attached to it, and in some quarters the stigma that it continues to be attached to sexual assault. And I would assume and suppose that the lack of codification, the lack of support that is given on some of these key measures is an articulation of that.
Absolutely. And it's almost a question of what comes first, because if this is the culture already, you're having to pay for your own rape kit. You're having to jump through all these hurdles to even deal with this process. I mean, it makes sense that a lot of people don't report their rapes for that reason. And then, of course, yeah, you have the bigger kind of rape culture that we're living in, and it causes not much action to take place. So I'm happy to see that the Senate has started this discussion, and hopefully the House of Representatives will follow suit.